All right, hopefully everyone can hear us. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We are Mamas on a Mission, and we are on a mission to take healthy back, which is so much fun. Karisa and I have been best friends since first grade. My name is Michala Petersen, and I'm a pharmacist from Minden, and we're going to tell you a little bit about what this mission entails and why we're on it as soon as this thing advances here. So these kids are the reason that we are on this mission for both of us, I think. We want to be the most vibrant moms we can be. We want to be around the longest. And the truth is, our nation is in trouble. Healthcare is broken. And, you know, we pay the most dollars of anywhere in the world, but are the sickest of anywhere in the world. And so some things that we can control and that we can change will help that drastically, because 75 to 90% of chronic disease is preventable. So these are my kiddos, 8, 6, 4, and 3, and my husband Mark, and we live on a ranch in the middle of nowhere, and we get to empower people every day. And it's so much more fun to be on the prevention side of things than to be behind the counter in the pharmacy. So thanks for opening your home, first of all. Go ahead.
Okay. Well, I'm Karisa. I know everybody in this room anyways. And Karisa Halpine, and I'm a fitness instructor from here in Grand Island. And I'm married to my husband, Stan, and we have 3 boys, Brock, who's 8, Bowden, who's 5 and a half, and Baylor, who's 4 months. And like Michala said, these are why we are, our families are why we're here, why we're passionate about inspiring healthy living and just spreading the message of good health. So a couple things before we get started. Just so you guys know, like Michala and I were in your, seeking this information just like you were a little over 2 years ago. We were in your position. We didn't know any of this stuff a little over 2 years ago, but we just, it lights our fire every single day because of the direction our society is heading, like Michala mentioned. And, you know, these are going to be some pretty bleak statistics, but just know that there's hope as we go along. So we're going to go ahead and get started. This is the new childhood in America. 1 in 3 are overweight. 1 in 6 have learning disabilities. 1 in 9 have asthma. 1 in 10 have ADHD. 1 in 12 food allergies. 1 in 20 have seizures. 1 in 54 males suffer autism, and 1 in 88 suffer autism. There's something wrong, right? Half of our children have chronic illness or are overweight. So it's really, really scary, and we need to find a way to change that. This really tugs at my heart because my oldest is 8, Michala's oldest is 8, and just thinking of them, today by the time the average child turns 8, in a developed country, they've had more sugar in their lives than the average person did in their entire lifetime just a century ago. And we're going to touch on, you know, why sugar isn't good for us and that as we go along. So this shows what we as Americans intake the most. You guys, it's clear. Fat and sugar is the biggest part of this. And, you know, produce, as you can see, is one of the tiniest slivers, and really those should be flip-flopped. And we'll go into why that needs to be that way in a little bit. The choosemyplate.gov, I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with that. We see that all over the place, and that's the USDA saying that we need 7 to 13 servings of fruits and vegetables, or our plate should be filled half, and not just lunch and dinner with fruits and vegetables, but breakfast too. I don't do that, and I know it's really hard to do that. So, and I'm sure you guys have seen the Rethink Your Drink campaign. What this does a really good job depicting is how much sugar, you know, when we read the label of anything, a beverage or a food, you know, when it says grams on the label, I don't know how to visualize grams. So this shows out in teaspoon measurements how much sugar is in something. And, you know, I was always kind of the mom before this that if my kids, I'm not a big pop fan, but if our kids did have pop, we'd always revert them to the Sprites or the, you know, non-caffeinated sodas. But I mean, to think how much sugar is actually in there. And if you guys are wondering how, I never knew how to calculate the sugar. What you do is you take the grams on whatever it is, the food item or the beverage, and you divide it by 4, and that gives you the amount of teaspoons that are in a serving. So then you got to look at how many servings and you multiply that by that. And so I just know I wouldn't give my kids
10
teaspoons of sugar,
Yeah.
And I don't know if you guys are familiar with Jamie Oliver at all. He's a food enthusiast, and he travels the country doing a TED Talk. And if you haven't seen it, watch it. It's really eye-opening. But he brings on stage a wheelbarrow full of sugar cubes. And that shows, he dumps it all out over the stage, and that shows how much sugar is consumed just in milk between kindergarten and 3rd grade at school.
It's disgusting.
So, crazy.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And the reason we care about that is because 1 teaspoon of sugar depletes the immune system by 50% for 4 to 6 hours. So we wonder why kids get sick after Halloween and Christmas, and you get the random acts of barfness after Easter. I mean, that's exactly why, they're sleep deprived. At least if you're like me, you expect your kids to behave perfectly because you don't want to be that person at Christmas. And then they're sugared up, and, it's a recipe for immune system dysfunction. So why fruits and vegetables? That's what we're going to go into now. So fruits and vegetables are antioxidants. And so, I had always heard that word, but even in pharmacy school, we got 1 week of nutrition training, and we took it with the physicians. I don't know if you got nutrition in physical therapy school. Yeah, it was like how to calculate the calories in a protein, a fat, and a carb, and how to feed someone through an IV if they couldn't eat on their own. That's what we got anyway. So I had heard antioxidant. It was a big word that kind of scared me, to be honest with you. And so we're going to just talk a little bit about how fruits and vegetables neutralize this big term called free radical, oxidative stress, and toxins. So this slide depicts a typical diet. I hate you can't spell diet without die, right? I hate the word diet. But anyway, I was a picture perfect person of this top graph here. And so what this depicts is a person that goes on a diet. They restrict their calories or carbs or whatever they're going to do. They get skinnier, and all of a sudden they rebound. And so the reason they rebound is because all of these impurities, all of these toxins never go away, even though the person shrinks in fat. And so you have to think of these toxins like pinballs that are pinging, your organs are the bumpers, and these pinballs are constantly pinging off of there. And so your organs naturally produce more fat in order to protect themselves from the toxins, from the free radicals. And so what happens in this bottom depiction here is that this person reprograms their metabolism. So they take in, there's a word I'm missing there, but they take in a ton of fruits, vegetables, and berries. And then the middle guy, they've lost the weight, but look, those impurities also have gone away. And the reason for that is because those antioxidants latch on to those free radicals. And you can think of a free radical, and that also leads to oxidative stress. You can think of that like a log. When it burns in your fireplace, the leftover is ash, right? So we have oxidative stress just from breathing and eating and working out and stress and all of those things. So you can't really get away from that. But the goal is to reduce that oxidative stress. So the fruits, vegetables, and berries latch onto those toxins. Then you get thirsty, and they're able to be whisked away to your liver and kidneys to be detoxified. So there's no rebound in this person. And I would say you have always looked, like Karisa has always been this shape. On the other hand, you bounced back incredibly after this pregnancy. Yeah. But I, on the other hand, am more lean now than I was even playing college volleyball, and that's post 4 kids. That's because I would do Weight Watchers, and I would substitute the 6-point brownie for the meal, and I would still lose weight, but I wasn't nutritionally fit. And so I think that's the whole point of this slide, is this is a nutritionally fit person versus somebody who's just trying to lose fat. So this slide is awesome because multivitamins are a billion-dollar industry, I believe. But what this slide depicts is the phytonutrition in both a multivitamin and the phytonutrients contained in an apple. So an apple, for instance, has 16,000 nutrients, and a multivitamin has about 16 there, I would say, right? So the bottom line here is God-made whole food is always going to be better than a multivitamin. And your body actually really does not have a clue what to do with a multivitamin. So your liver and kidneys have to take that multivitamin through 12 different conversions to even get it to a form that your body recognizes. And by that time, you have more oxidative stress because it's stressful on your system to try and figure that out. And there's actually been 2 different studies that have been stopped 2 years short because the multivitamin population had a higher incidence of chronic disease and cancer than the placebo group. So you can make your own decision there, but the bottom line is whole food is always going to be better. So one simple change is how everything starts. Getting healthy can be really daunting, but one little thing at a time isn't so daunting. So we have a Facebook group. It's super fun. This month, the theme is Thankfulness November, which is kind of changing it up a little bit. We did Fall into Fitness last month. And so what people do is they just post pictures of them living life and inspiring others along the way. And so we focus on 4 things: drinking water, working out, healthy eating, and sleep, because sleep is kind of a thing that we don't really think about. And we all, we're supposedly not a very... Nobody wants to admit that they're stressed, but our nation is probably one of the most stressed populations.
Right. So you can dare to compare, like it says. And like Michala said, you look at this picture over here and you're like, oh my gosh, we live in a fast-paced, fast food society. Everything is, and another thing that I think of when I look at this is just be really aware of, like, when you guys go to the grocery store too, the middle is going to suck you in to where all of that, the processed, more quick on-the-go grabbing food, that we grab out of our pantries, when we're in a hurry, and the shopping, the perimeters help us, focus on more of the healthy options, and implementing the one simple change like Michala just touched on by, whether it be going for a 20-minute walk a day, or drinking an extra glass of water, or eating 2 more servings of fruits and vegetables, just taking it one tiny step, one simple change at a time. It's not quite so daunting, and you can go from this. There is hope. You really can, and the choice is ours, to go from that to this. So.
And the cool thing with one simple change is by the end of 6 months, you've changed 6 things without even knowing it. It takes 3 weeks to develop a habit. So you focus on drinking water for 30 days, and at day 35, you're still going to be thinking, oh my gosh, I didn't have the water today. So this guy over here, no judgment at all, because we were all here once, and it's not like we don't ever feed our kids fast food. We're not saying that at all. But this guy probably has a lot of what's called the foolish 5 in his system. How many of you have heard of Dr. Sears? Anyone? He is thank you. He's a well-known pediatrician, probably one of the best-known pediatricians in America. And he wrote this awesome book. He's written over 40 books, but my favorite so far is called NDD, Nutrition Deficit Disorder. And basically he says that we do not have a Ritalin deficiency in our country. We don't have a Zocor deficiency in our country. We don't have a Prozac deficiency. What we have is a whole food deficiency. And so he talks about 5 foolish things that if you avoid these 5 things, you're going to already be eating 90% clean. And so you're going to be 90%, closer to this person. So those foolish 5 things are, number 1 is hydrogenated oil. So this is present in any fast food. It's present in a lot of things, actually. So reading labels are so important, and sometimes they're disguised as really crazy things. They may even say trans fat is another one, so they may say no trans fat on them, but you flip them over and it really does have trans fat in them, but it doesn't have enough trans fat to list on a label. High fructose corn syrup is another one that is present in a ton of stuff. What's the third? MSG, or other preservatives that cause food addiction. That's the reason that we are addicted to food. Both trans fat and high fructose corn syrup cause brain fog, where you just don't feel like yourself. I'm sure many of you have eaten out and afterwards you just feel like total crap. I mean, that's part of the reason. The 4th thing is food dyes. These food dyes look beautiful on shelves, and then all of a sudden they get into our bodies and they're neurotoxins. So what they do is they degrade the insulin that allows our nerves to fire fast. And so you can really tell, kids' brains are 60% fat. And so I know now that we're not used to eating that crap, my parents witnessed this on a boat this summer. The kids had some sort of drink that was just laden in food dye, and it was like you could flip a switch. I mean, it was eye-opening to all of us, but that is what happens in their little bodies. They just cannot process that. And then the fifth thing, and probably in my opinion the most dangerous, is aspartame. And this is present, it goes by a lot of different names, but it's present in anything diet, low calorie, no calorie, sugar free. I mean, all of those buzzwords. And what aspartame does in our bodies is it degrades to formaldehyde. And I'm the daughter of a mortician, and I know it's not good to pickle anything with a heartbeat, right? So, I mean, that's really scary. And so avoiding those 5 things, you're eating 90% clean already.
So we mentioned servings, and the USDA recommends that we consume 7 to 13 every single day. So what you guys will see is that we have 2 to 5 servings, which are strawberries and a banana, and a serving is the size of a fist. And just kind of be thinking, how many servings do I consume? Do I try to consume every day? This is what an average American consumes on a daily basis. And honestly, I fell pretty darn close. I mean, I knew fruits and vegetables were important, but yeah, never did I consume over here. So 5 to 7 is what a quote unquote healthy American consumes on a daily basis. 7 to 13 is right here, and that is for a non-athlete and a non-disease state person, okay, every single day. And then an athlete is supposed to be consuming 13 to 18 servings every single day. So,
which is nearly impossible.
Yeah.
So some more reasons to eat fruit. You know, I realized that fruits and vegetables were important, but I didn't understand all the health benefits that go along with this. So cherries help calm your nervous system. Watermelon helps control your heart rate, along with about 9 different other things, including your metabolism, and it's an aphrodisiac, and it helps control your mood, all of those things. Strawberries fight against cancer and aging. Grapes relax your blood vessels, as do, you know, all sorts of different purple fruits and vegetables. Oranges maintain great skin and vision, and then blueberries also protect your heart. Those are just a few of those on there. Prevention is a lot easier than a cure, is the bottom line. I mean, if we can prevent, especially in our kids, 1 and 2, I mean, that does not have to be the norm in our country. You know, it does not have to be the norm. And so before, you know, pharmacy was my passion. I was a community pharmacist for 10 years, and I loved what I did. I really felt like I helped people. And about 4 months into our Juice Plus experience, though, it was like an eye-opener to me. I really feel now like your body is a finely tuned vehicle. And if the oil light comes on in your body or in your car, you can do one of 2 things. You can find and fix the problem, or you can unplug the light. And so a lot of what we're doing is unplugging lights, unplugging warning systems. And so we're going to swing into one simple change again to tell you how to combat those.
So one thing that I never, you know, drinking, I don't know about you guys, but how many of you like water? Do you try and drink a lot of water? Really, we're supposed to be consuming half of our body weight in ounces of water each and every day, or at least like a half. A good rule of thumb is like a half to a whole gallon of water. I struggled in this department. There's so many things that water helps that I never knew about. Fluid balance being one of several. Fatigue buster. One thing that I love to do is drink like 8 ounces of water that I left on my nightstand the night before. Drink it first thing in the morning before I get up out of bed. And it's amazing how it wakes up your organs and how great it makes you feel. You aren't running to the coffee pot near as fast in the mornings. But, you know, and my most sluggish days are the days that I don't consume a lot of water. So it's key for fatigue busting. Blood normalizing, calorie control. You know, our brain a lot of times is tricked. We think we're hungry, and really if we just slow down and drink some water, we won't eat as much. Brain booster, muscle fuel, clear skin, productivity booster, toxic remover, which that'll roll us right into the next slide about inflammation. As Michala said, you know, everybody has free radicals upon free radicals, or those impurities in our body. Just to kind of recap that, and those turn into oxidative stress, and that turns into the inflammation. And so, you know, combining that water and increasing our intake of fruits and vegetables, or that super antioxidant number, that will help decrease the inflammation in our bodies. And inflammation can cause several things: obesity, diabetes, gingivitis, cardiovascular disease, joint pain, infection, injury, arthritis, asthma and allergies. There's those autoimmunes that are rising each and every year. IBS, bowel, digestive issues, and the list just goes on. So
I believe that inflammation is the root of all disease, and I think healthcare in America is going to get to that phase as well. So if we can decrease inflammation, we'll be way better off. So we would be remiss if we stood up here and told you that as an athlete or as just a human in general, you should be consuming 13 servings of fruits and vegetables, and then not give you the tools that you could use to help bridge that gap. So we partnered with a company called Juice Plus, and that, they have really propelled our mission forward. And our mission is to inspire healthy living around the world. And we do that with 4 different products that bridge gaps. So we have Juice Plus, which is 30 fruits and vegetables that come in a capsule or a soft chew, and that bridges the gap between how many servings we do get a day and how many servings we should get. And then we have a complete protein powder. It's totally different than the Juice Plus, and Chris is going to go into that in a minute. But that bridges the gap between how many meals we should eat a day, which is 6, and how many meals the average American eats a day, which is 2. And then we have the Tower Garden, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit here. The Tower Garden bridges the gap between the lack of nutrition in our produce that we get, especially in the middle of Nebraska, in the middle of winter, and what you can actually grow in your Tower Garden. So do you want to list off any of those?
Sure. I know I didn't consume what Juice Plus. This has been a huge catalyst in our health. Apples, my family, like I said, we knew fruits and vegetables are important, but when I go to the store, I get the traditional apples, like the ones that we consume every day, and they weren't 30 by any means.
Yeah.
Acerola, cherry, cranberry, beets, tomatoes, spinach, broccoli, kale, carrots is pretty typical, but elderberries and black currant and blackberries and red currant and bilberries, and it's awesome to know that you're getting all of that.
It's amazing. So our Juice Plus journey began 2 years ago, and I was in search of one of these right here. I loved gardening. I still love gardening. I just do it differently now. And we would plant a great garden every year, and I would see a 4.5-foot bull snake, usually about 2 to 3 weeks into having the garden there. And that's the last time I'd go in the garden. I was done. The kids were done. We hate snakes, and where we live, we have a lot of them. So anyway, so I was in search of a tower garden, and my uncle had mentioned, well, you just need a tower garden. And I researched it. I knew everything about it, but could not figure out how to get one. Well, by the grace of God, 2 weeks later, my good friend, who is also a pharmacist that I played volleyball with at UNK, put a picture on Facebook of her tower garden, and I messaged her instantly and said, oh my gosh, I need one of these things. It's incredible. And she said, yes, you do. So I called her. And within one conversation, I had never heard of Juice Plus, and I was resistant to it because she said, can I tell you what it is? And I said, oh, we're already healthy. We hardly ever go to the doctor. I'm never going to drink a shake, but go ahead and tell me about it. And so it was a no-brainer once I heard about it. $50 a year for no minimums, no quotas, and no inventories, plus the amazing amount of research that Juice Plus has behind it. I was sold right then. But I didn't want to share it with a soul. And Karisa, I think, was the same way.
Same way.
And so it took about 4 weeks, and our family was having incredible results. And I understand prevention, and I understood prevention 2 years ago. So for me, it was an intellectual decision to put this in my family every day. I didn't expect anything because we were already healthy. And so for me to have energy that was through the roof, my husband was in a bad cannon accident 3 years ago, and he wasn't having the pain and the inflammation, or the inflammation and consequently the pain that he was having before. Our 2-year-old little cowboy that's now 4 gagged at anything green, and within 2 weeks was asking for salads and eating seconds. Our 4-year-old in the sunglasses and the hair thing had trouble with focus, and in her 4 years she had never sat on her lap to read an entire book. And we were reading book after book after book with her at bedtime, which was awesome. And our 8-month-old that's now 3 needed tubes in her ears. I canceled the tube consult thinking maybe there's a deficiency here, something that she's missing in her diet. And as a family of 6, we've not had a single sick visit in 2 years. She never did get tubes. She's not been on any antibiotics or anything like that. And so at that point, I really dove into the research. I knew I needed to tell a mom of a kiddo with cancer about Juice Plus because the creator's dad was given 3 weeks to live and ended up living for 15 years. And her message back to me forever changed my life. She said, "How long have you known about this, and why didn't you tell me sooner?" And it was really then that my whole life changed, because I took an oath to do no harm. And by not telling people about this and at least being the messenger, I mean, what they do with the message is not up to me, but at least everyone deserves to hear about it. So that's really why we're here today. And so one of the coolest things that we have done, I mentioned earlier, I grew up in a funeral home, and it really bothered me that my kids aren't going to have that luxury to get to know the elderly like I have such a fond love for because of the funeral home. And so one thing that we have done is we have taken a tower garden to the nursing homes. And so we've done this tower tour. We're now on our 5th stop, and we go in for 20 minutes a week, and we plant seeds with them, and we set up the tower garden, and we tear it down at the end, and we harvest with them. And half the time we're singing Jingle Bells in June, but they don't care. You know, it's a fun experience for both. So the bottom says, why try and explain miracles to your kids when you can just have them plant a garden? And so growing your own food really is like printing your own money. I don't know if you know, but California grows 90% of our green leafy vegetables, and they're in the worst drought, or second worst drought in history. So produce is only going to be on the rise. Produce isn't nutritionally what it used to be. You would need to eat 10 cups of spinach now to equal what one did in 1960. That's because they're picked way before they're ripe. They're trucked 1,000 miles. They're sprayed with a chemical to make them look ripe. And I'm sure every one of us has cut into a bright white strawberry even this summer. I mean, there's hardly, you know, it's better than eating chips, obviously, but there's not much nutrition there. So, so this, you know exactly where it's been, what's been sprayed on it, exactly how it rolls. And there's no soil, no weeds, and no snakes. Most important. Yeah.
Okay, so we love our tower garden as well. Actually, just this weekend we took ours down from outside. Dan cleaned it up. We're hauling it inside so we can have our winter garden. So if you see a bright light, you know exactly what it is.
The aliens are
so we were wondering, like, what do these people have?
What are they growing in?
We were like, Tony's like, what is that?
Yeah,
I know.
Right.
I'm like, yeah.
I'm not going to talk to them because
They're
It's
UFOs.
really funny.
Yeah.
It's a joke.
But we love it, and it really, Stephen Ritz, we had the privilege of meeting him in St. Louis, and he's completely transformed the South Bronx, and that's a real, it's a impoverished, you know, community, yeah. And he has incorporated these gardens and just growing food, and just completely has transformed these kids' lives. And he says that if you can teach a kid about nature, you can teach them to nurture. And that is so, so true. The boys love planting the seeds and watching them grow, just like your kiddos do, I'm sure.
And they eat what they grow.
They do. They're more apt to eat what they grow. So, yeah. So Michala, like she said, been best friends since 1st grade. She's a credible pharmacist. She calls me up on the phone a little over 2 years ago and says, all right, she goes, I've heard of something, you know, I don't really know much about quite yet, but it's 30 different fruits, vegetables, and berries in a capsule or soft chew form. And I honestly, just being in the fitness industry and all I hear is vitamins and supplements and whey proteins, and there's just so much, as we know, out there. And so I thought it sounded too good to be true with all of that jam-packed, concentrated nutrition in these teeny tiny capsules or soft chews. So Michala knew my circumstances. She was always my rock, you know, especially through, you know, being a single mom. That's what I was going through when she called. And just kind of, I was missing that little bit of hope and glimmer in my life. You know, I was being the best mom that I possibly could for my kids, but was just looking for a little bit more. And I had no idea this is what it was going to turn out to be, but I'm very thankful for it. And when she introduced it to me too, my kids were sick, and she knew that all the time. We were in the doctor's office minimum every other month, if not more than that. You know, the whole vicious circle of sick kids, you know, doctor paying for doctor's visits, and them missing school and us missing work. And, you know, Dawn used to watch the kids. So we were the typical coughing and runny noses and earaches and all that good stuff. So it made sense to me when Michala mentioned that kids could eat for free when sponsored by an adult, if they fall within the ages of 4 to 18 or full-time college age, and they can eat up to 4 years. And so I thought, okay, you know, that struck me, you know, and I thought, wow, what a great company to be able to want to do that for kids, you know. And I'm a firm believer, I mean, just the way it's transformed our kids' health. Fewer doctor's visits, and you guys can read these as we go, but taking fewer, you know, antibiotics and over-the-counter prescription drugs, and missing fewer days of school, which is huge, eating more fruits and vegetables, being way more aware of their health in all aspects, which is a lot of fun to see. Drinking more water, that's been a cool thing. Consuming less fast food, and just reaping some benefit, you know, of whatever kind that looks like. And one study that really sticks out with the Children's Health Study is, it piggybacks with the immune study. And Michala is going to go into the research here that's on Juice Plus and that we're really grateful for. But the immune study is huge. And that's what's really made me feel like I need to share this with people, because my boys were always sick, right? So 80 days, I mean, the research shows that at just 80 days, the immune system is balanced. And our immune system, our body's made up of two different cells, the T cells, which are the sergeants, and the B cells, which are the foot soldiers. And, you know, in a compromised immune system, right, or a weakened immune system, or a person with an autoimmune, the B cells or the soldiers have overtaken the T cells, okay? So at just 80 days on Juice Plus and flooding our bodies with all that goodness, it balances those numbers out, raises the T cells and lowers the B cells. So, you know, at the end of the day, that's what floored me too, is that it's just fruits and vegetables, but to know that there's that kind of research on it. So anyways, 2 weeks into Juice Plus, I was feeling way more energy, and I was going to take whatever I could get, being a fitness instructor and single mom and whatever else, like all of us want more energy. The boys 3 to 4 months down the road, like I said, we're not going to the doctor. We're way more healthier. And then, you know, fast forward, I remarry in December. I married Stan, and he is a little older than myself, and he for 20 years was battling high blood pressure, high cholesterol, and incorporating the one simple change of Juice Plus, his numbers are within normal reads, which is huge. He's never felt better. And being asthmatic and, you know, deals with allergies, he was able to run his first half marathon last year and felt great. And so, you know, not only has it transformed our health, but it's really given me a fire every morning, and a drive and a passion when I wake up to inspire healthy living. So Michala's gonna have me touch on the shake mix, and that's another big part of my story. As an avid runner, and Julie can probably testify to this as well, but you know, I was running half marathons and training and averaging like an 8:30-minute mile, and thought, unless I make more time in my life to vamp up my training, I'm not going to get any better, you know. And it was kind of, I was just needing to be content with that. And so, and I'm kind of competitive, and I love the sport. And so just by adding the one simple change to Juice Plus and the shake mix, I was able to shave off a minute per mile. So averaging from an 8:30 to a 7:30 split.
You need a disclaimer,
for a
like,
half
don't
marathon.
feel bad if this is not you, like on the bottom.
But I mean,
I could even run 1 mile
I know.
at that pace.
yeah, well, it's just
Some lows
it's
there,
fun
too.
when we can run faster and feel better, and
That's
you know,
right.
it's fun. So,
Amen. Do it,
all right.
sister.
so the shake mix is awesome, you guys. It tastes like cake batter. It's non-GMO, as you can see. It's a plant protein. It's protein rich. It's water washed soy. You know, soy tends to get a bad rap in America, and it's not so much soy, but how the soy is processed. And with the water washing process of the soy, it's clean. It's minimally processed as opposed to the whey proteins, and we'll touch on that here in just a sec. But it's, gosh, loaded with 26 additional superfoods. So every day, knowing that we have a shake and Juice Plus, we're flooding our bodies with 50 plus plants, and you can't get much better than that. I think that's it on that.
Go.
And it's NSF certified. So that's another big one. What NSF certification means is it's huge for Olympian athletes. They want to know what's on the label is in the bottle, or the protein, what's in the product is on the labels, and nothing in between.
And number 3 is it does no harm. So that's
Right.
important as well.
Right. And to know that it's safe in fragile populations like kiddos and nursing moms and pregnant women and cancer patients, you know, is astounding.
Yep,
So,
for sure. So this is a comparison between the Whey and the Juice Plus Complete. And whey is pretty inflammatory, but that's kind of what we grew up, I guess, thinking was the end-all be-all to protein. It promotes illness, it causes bloating, it's hard to digest. And then Karisa touched on the benefits of the Complete, which is to reduce inflammation. Disease really thrives in an acidic environment. Cancer feeds on sugar, which is one of the other reasons that we want to key in on sugar. And so this is alkaline to the body, so it makes it less conducive for disease to grow, which is awesome. So as a pharmacist, I asked the 3 questions that Karisa just touched on when somebody, I think I was approached by almost everything, and I would almost get excited when somebody came up to ask me this because I stumped them always. They never answered yes to all 3 questions. So I would say, is it safe in pregnancy? Is it safe in nursing, you know, pregnancy and nursing? Is it safe in cancer patients? And is it safe? Would you give it to your kids? And nobody ever said yes to all 3. So you can imagine how we were totally blown away when we found out that it is studied in all 3 of those. So this is a list also of what made Juice Plus stand out to us. Number 1 is the longevity. It's been around for 23 years. The quality is amazing. It's tested 6 times from field to capsule. So in 23 years, it's never had a single recall. I mean, all of those E. coli outbreaks that spinach was contaminated, you know, even though Juice Plus is the biggest grower of kale in the United States, there has not been a single recall for anything like that. No lawsuits. She touched on NSF certification. Mike, take her, please. Just a minute. Number 4 is the authenticity. We're transparent. It's incredible. We absolutely are who we say we are. The research is all third-party reviewed, double-blind, placebo-controlled. So as authentic as you can get as far as research goes. And then we really are one team, one mission. You know, we're all on this mission together. And then the 6th thing that stood out is the 36 published clinical research studies. And I know that, sorry guys, in order to have a drug approved to the pharmaceutical market, you need 2 studies and they only have to be 65% effective. And that's on the intended population. So there are a few studies leading up to that. But if it's a diabetes medication, they only have to have 2 studies on that diabetic population in order to get it approved. So the fact that fruits and vegetables, and specifically Juice Plus itself, has 36 studies, that's absolutely incredible. And so these are the research findings, and I'm not going to bore you with all of that because it excites me, but it may not excite you. But there are 2 studies on gum health, a periodontal study with wisdom teeth. And that showed that the wisdom tooth population that had their wisdom teeth taken out that were on Juice Plus had less pain, and they were able to have a better range of motion. And they also healed faster than the placebo group. And the gums are kind of the gateway to the body. You know, a healthy mouth is usually a healthy immune system. There's 4 studies on heart health, 4 studies on the immune system. Karisa did an awesome job explaining that. 4 studies on DNA health, and this is really important for women of childbearing age because that's the DNA we pass on to our kids. You know, so those cells are constantly regenerating, and so there is hope. You know, even though we made bad decisions or poor decisions in the past, there's hope going forward that we absolutely can change our future. You know, 95%, there's only 5% of disease that is actually genetic. The other 95% is what we put into our bodies, what we're exposed to, how we de-stress, and all of those things. So that's really exciting. And then we talked about oxidative stress for a while. Dang, I thought that had a pointer. And you can see this huge list of research that has been conducted on oxidative stress. I mean, UCLA, Georgetown, University of Sydney, all over the world, University of Arizona, I mean, big name universities. And then the health study, or the healthy skin study, we know that Juice Plus increases microvascular circulation to the whole body by 39%. So that's awesome for skin health because, you know, if I knew that I could have the glow of pregnancy without being pregnant, I may not have 4 children. No, I'm teasing. That's a joke. I would still have 4 children. But anyway, bad joke probably. But if you think about it, diabetics, I mean, they have a lot of complications, right? You think of peripheral neuropathy or numbness in their toes. You think of eye health that is compromised, kidney health, erectile dysfunction. Can you imagine the implication for their future if you can increase the blood flow to those areas by 39%? I mean, that's huge. That's the difference between somebody having their leg amputated and not, you know, that's really huge. And then there's a whole bunch of studies done on systemic inflammation. And so this is a pop quiz. This is the only quiz of the day. And my kids would belt out the answers since they think that that's what gets you to heaven is eating lots of McDonald's. Anyway, how old do you think that this happy or unhappy meal is? Any guesses? You get bonus points if you even throw out a number. I'll tell you, it is 16 years old. This is at the Smithsonian, 16 years old. And we need to find out when its birthday is so we can say 17 years. One of the things that I love about this amazing company is that they are so open to research. And the majority of the studies we found out at conference have come from people approaching Juice Plus and coming to them and saying, will you study it in this, you know, in this disease or whatever. And so this was a group of physicians that approached Juice Plus and said, we know that the majority of heart attacks and stroke happen after a high-fat meal. Will you study it? So this study was just 28 days long. They brought in a big group of people as far as studies go. It was about 200 people. And they tested their brachial artery pressure, so blood pressure, fed them a high-fat meal from McDonald's, tested their blood pressure again, and what they found was a 50% vasoconstriction that lasted 4 to 6 hours. So it was twice as hard for their hearts to pump that fatty, trans fat, remember we talked about that, blood through. And that's because anytime we ingest something that's man-made that our body doesn't know what to do with, automatically as a protection mechanism, we constrict. Those blood vessels constrict to find out if it's poisonous, if it's going to kill us, and then they relax 4 to 6 hours later. So that was huge. So they sent 3 groups away. I know you're cringing already. Do you know the results of this? Anyway, they sent 3 groups away, a placebo group, an orchard and garden, so the fruit and veg blend only, and then orchard, garden, and vineyard, so all 3 blends. Brought them back at 28 days, same thing, blood pressure, high-fat meal, blood pressure. The placebo group was the same, which we would have predicted. The orchard and garden group had a 62% reduction in that vasoconstriction. So it was 62% easier for their hearts to pump that blood through than the placebo group. But the orchard, garden, and vineyard group had less than 2% vasoconstriction. So just think about that for a minute. That's essentially as if they had not even eaten that high-fat meal to begin with. And so as a person that has heart attack and stroke in my family history, that's huge for prevention. But also as a mom, I mean, how many times do we buzz our kids through Runza and then drop them off at the soccer field or, you know, gymnastics or wherever in a hurry, knowing it's 50% harder for their little hearts to pump that blood through. So that's an incredible, that's a reason that my kids will take all 3 blends for the rest of their lives. So absolutely. I know this one is near and dear to you.
Right, so this is the Cobra study. It was a 28-week study. The Cobra soldiers are like, it's about as stringent as you can get because they are the equivalent to the Navy SEALs. So a really controlled environment that this study was done. And so like, you know, they ate at the same times each day, they ate the same food, they worked out at the same time, they had the same workouts, sleep was the same, hours, everything. So basically what the results showed is the Juice Plus group were able to work out harder, longer, recovery was a lot faster and better as opposed to the placebo group.
Yeah.
So we've given you guys a ton of information, but we do want to leave you with some concepts to think about as you leave. This one really tugs at me because working in the fitness industry, exercise is crucial for our health. Like I think it's amazing. I love the results of it. We all love to feel good, even if it's just a brisk walk outside. But if we don't pay attention to what we're putting in our bodies, we aren't going to see the results that we want to see. We aren't going to feel as good as we could feel, you know, and our bodies are like a finely tuned vehicle. You know, if we give it that proper micronutrition and macronutrition of, you know, of like the Complete and the Juice Plus, for instance, you know, it's gonna take us places, and food really is fuel, and it really does matter. So this lady, both of these women are the same age, 74 years old. So it's completely our choice as to how we want to handle our health. So
you are what you eat, so don't be fast, cheap, easy, or fake. It all comes back to what you eat, what you drink, and what you think.
So if we give our plants water, why would we give our kiddos the sodas and the pops and the teas and the juices, right? I mean, we want them to grow, obviously, even more than the plants. The greatest wealth is health. If we, we could have all the money in the world, and if we don't have our health, we aren't able to enjoy the other part of it.
So this is the beginning of anything you want. And the purpose of us being here is to rage against the norm. That is really the mission we're on. It doesn't have to be the norm that 600,000 Americans die every single year of cancer. It doesn't have to be the norm that 750,000 people die every year in America of heart attack, stroke, cardiovascular disease. It doesn't have to be the norm that if we keep going on the curve that we're going, by the year 2032, 1 in 2 of our children will have autism. That does not have to be normal. And so if anything that you heard convicted you here today, we cannot wait to partner with you to take healthy back. So thank you so much for being here. Does anyone have any questions? I'm gonna stop recording.